Welcome to the Women Warrior Podcast. I am your host, Jen Michelle. Here at Women Warriors, we are not just thinking of our dreams. We are putting action behind every step that we take, and we are rising to the occasion. Today, my special guest is Roslynn Figueroa, who is also one of my authors from the book Layers of a Woman. So, Roslynn, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me.
So, let's talk about life's unexpected curveball.
Yes, so my chapter kind of dives into my childhood. I talk about, honestly, how it was having four parents from birth up until obviously now. So I just kind of talk about the struggles that I dealt with. And the thing that I think made it difficult for me with writing this chapter was kind of writing it from my perspective. So granted, that may not be how my parents saw it, but this was my perspective as the child that dealt with two sets of parents, young parents at that, because my parents were very young when they had me. So I think that's where I struggled the most when I was writing this chapter, kind of making sure that like this is my story and really not allowing other like input to come in, because this is, like I said, my interpretation of how I dealt with my childhood.
Your truth.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, I think it was just hard because I didn't know how my parents would feel reading it, but I just wanted to be honest and share, you know, what I went through as a child, because I don't know who may resonate with my story.
Yeah. So in your chapter, you talk about having two sets of parents, and you're close to both sides of your family.
Yes.
You know, from what I see, I mean, your nieces absolutely adore you, you know, and, you know, you're lucky because you have a big family unit that there's a lot of love within your family. So I can only imagine how hard it was to write your chapter, because I feel like when we write chapters, it's the first thing is we get nervous of how people are going to receive it.
Yes.
Right. It's kind of, you go through different levels of it. It's how people are going to perceive it and receive it, but then also owning your truth. So when did that come to kind of fruition? When you were like, you know what, this is my truth, I'm owning it?
I think I've always had some type of like, I don't know what's the word to explain it, but I've always felt like I wanted to share my story. I just never knew I would actually have the platform to do that, honestly, ever. So when the opportunity kind of came up, I was like, this is my chance to kind of share my story and share what I went through as a child, because I feel like it, I know it's helped people already, because people have reached out to me and say like, you know, thank you for your story. It helped me realize some things that I dealt with that I didn't realize I was even dealing with. And honestly, my childhood trauma that I wrote about, I didn't realize I even had until honestly in my 30s, when I started therapy, because I really didn't realize the trauma that I had as a child. I brought it into, you know, adulthood. I brought it into like relationships. So therapy helped me realize like the trauma that I would bring in really stemmed from my childhood. So it's something that it took me obviously a long time to figure out, because I didn't even know that I had that. But then when I did, I was like, this is my way to kind of explain my story in a way that is healthy for me to express now. It doesn't feel like a burden or heavy on me to explain, but it's still hard to write about.
Of course, especially when you don't want to let anyone down. Yes. Or you don't want people to get the wrong idea. I think more so within our families, you know. So for me, what I wrote about was about my son in the first one. Then the second book, I wrote about kind of unapologetic growth, which is scary because during that time, Women Warriors was going through a transition period. And you always get nervous how people are going to receive. So especially family, right? So let's say now we went to bestseller within 23 hours. So 2 best-selling books. But for you to kind of peel those onions, that layers, you know, kind of talking about some of your trauma, I don't want to talk too much in it because I do want people to read your chapter. Mm-hmm. But what is some of the trauma that you spoke within those pages that you realized that you carried into your adulthood?
I think, honestly, trying to please my parents on both sides was something that I definitely brought into adulthood. I still say it to this day, I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I think that's something I learned at a very young age, that I was trying to please my parents on both sides when I would go to one parent's house for the weekend or the other. And it was really, in that situation, being that young, I didn't realize I was kind of like in a lose-lose situation. But I think that's something that I definitely brought into adulthood, and also my anxiety. My anxiety of disappointing parents on both sides is something that I brought into my adulthood that I didn't realize was even anxiety until I really broke down the emotions and the feelings I would get when I was writing this chapter, honestly.
So during the process,
I was definitely like nervous, and I had moments of like moments where I would get emotional writing it because I'm just like, I didn't realize it kind of re-triggers some of the emotions that I felt as a child.
yeah. So now, how does it feel after the book?
Now I feel better, and I felt like I also had to have this conversation with all four of my parents as well as I was writing it, just so that they knew like I was gonna share my story through my perspective. So it may not be right to them, but this is how I felt and this is how I interpreted my childhood. So I think that was the hardest part when it came to actually writing the chapter, speaking to my parents individually to talk to them about it and just kind of, get their support on it. And even if they didn't, like, I would still do what's best for me. But, just knowing that my parents did support me with this journey, it meant a lot.
Of course. But also, let's say the girl that picks up that book and reads that chapter. Because I feel like a part of you did that for those girls too. Because I think you, as having a background in social work, I think you being somebody, you are very caring. You are a Cancer.
Yes.
So you are very emotionally connected. But I feel like you're a giver. That's one thing about you. You're definitely a giver. So how do you feel that kind of conveyed to that girl that read that chapter?
Honestly, I just hope that whoever that girl is that read that, I just hope she knows that, like, everything is going to be fine and everything's going to work out. Because that's kind of like how I wrote the message to, like, my younger self. Like, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to work out. Like, I wish you could see how everything turned out, like that younger version of you. But I know, like, I think, like, honestly, even a male family member even contacted me. And he was, like, emotional after reading my chapter because he's seen me grow up. So he's, like, reading this triggered emotions for me because he's dealing with something like that with, like, his own children. And he's the one that is the parent. So him reading it, he was triggered by it. So I didn't even think that my story would even resonate with certain parents that may have put their kids through it from, like, the parent side.
Yeah. Because I think while you're in the middle of also growing, because one thing as parents, now that I am a parent, I think growing up, you think your parents have all the answers to everything, but they're human.
Yeah,
they're human. They're allowed to make mistakes. They're learning how to be parents for the first time, or they're navigating through relationships and just life in general too. I think it's also noticing that they're just human like us as well. So I think that's so important that your chapter not only can help that person that has kind of a family now that has step parents involved and stuff like that, but also to that parent that, okay, this is what my child is going through.
Yeah. I think it was interesting to hear that perspective from the other side. And just, like, honestly, I wanted my story to paint a picture that, like, having step parents isn't, like, the worst thing. Because I think there's always kind of like a stigma around having step parents and just not being treated, like, the right way. Because it does happen, unfortunately.
Yes.
But I just wanted to create that narrative where it's like I did have step parents, and I have, like, my parents both remarried when I was young, so I was very confused why they couldn't figure it out at my young age. But now I'm like, I see why things happened the way that they did, and I'm very thankful that I do have four parents that, care for me, love me, and they are, like, my best friends. So I'm very thankful for that. But I don't think people always see that positive side to having like step parents. So.
Yes, because I feel like that's what your story did convey, though. Like, I didn't feel like it was just, like, oh my God, this is horrible, my child. That's not at all the message that I got while reading it. But I love that you are that voice for the younger girls that are reading it, or the moms or the dads, right, that can see that. I think it's just so important to share your story. So are you going to elaborate a little bit more, like, in the next book? Like, what is or is just a whole new chapter you feel like you want to take on at this point?
I'm not sure. I think I may want to take on a new chapter because I feel like there's more things that I want to kind of discuss in the next book. I'm not sure if it'll be family related, but I'm trying to think what my next chapter. But I feel like I covered a good amount in this chapter that really kind of settles my younger child to really feel, like, at peace with sharing my story. Because if I'm able to help at least one person, then I feel like my story did its job, and I know that it has. So I think in this next one, I think I want to have a new chapter I want to kind of go into.
Yeah. So with this book, it was titled Layers of a Woman, right? And I feel like as women, we have so many layers.
We definitely
We have layers that we didn't even know were layers, that we didn't know that were there until we pull one back, right? So right now, in the kind of where you are right now, what layer do you feel that you're in? Like, what's your season, right? Because you know how we're always in different seasons or different eras, whatever you want to call them. But layers of a woman. So where are you at this very moment? Where's Roslynn?
Right now, I feel like I am in a season of, honestly, just like practicing gratitude. As we go into, different months, I just feel like I just continue to practice gratitude each month and my blessings. That's really the two main things that I just always take with me into every month that I go into.
Yeah.
Just really practicing those things and just never losing sight of my goals and, the things I want to accomplish, and gratitude and my blessings, and just always counting those blessings really is what always kind of carries me to get to those places.
Yeah. Wise words by an author.
A
best-selling author, I should say.
Thank you.
Roslynn, thank you so much for, one, being an author in this book and using your voice to help others, and to just always showing up as authentically you. So if anybody is on here and they want to reach out to you, maybe they have a question or maybe they're going through something similar, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Roslynn Ivette _.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you for having me again.
And I cannot wait to have you back on. So thank you. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Layers of a Woman is available on Amazon today. And remember, when you sit with the women warriors, the conversation is always different.